Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Security Repo Podcast. I am thrilled to be here with Anita Nikolich, who is the Director of Research and Technology Innovation and is a research scientist. And Anita has been working on some really interesting work, gamifying some of the elements that's really troubling in society, which is senior citizens fighting scammers, essentially. Anita, we're so thrilled to have you here on the show and spending your time to inform us on some of the great work. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, it was great to see you again. We met back at B-Sides 312 where you were giving that awesome presentation, Senior Citizens Fighting Scammers. Uh, let's kind of dive right in for our audience. Like what got you interested in this area of study? Like scammers, cybercrime, like what drew you into this area of research?
So I've been in security for pretty much my whole career, at different types of organizations, different levels. But increasingly, there is just more scams that are becoming really, really good. So it used to be you could like kind of identify a fish, or you could tell people don't click on sketchy links, don't go to sketchy Wi-Fi. But increasingly, I got very interested in how the scams have evolved, and increasingly as we see, I mean, I see it all around me as older people are getting online, they clearly, we all say they're not digital natives, but it's not just that is interesting to me. It's that they're scammers who are going straight for senior citizens because they have more time on their hands, they have more money. In some cases, they're not as savvy with the digital technology, but the dollar amounts lost, what really drove me and my collaborators to do this project is increasingly seniors are losing by far dollar wise more than any other population. Whereas there's been studies showing that, kind of Gen Z and younger generations tend to get scammed more just because they're online more. The dollar amounts that are lost are far higher by seniors. And that's what really kind of drove us to look at this market.
Mm.
So you say us, and I think this is a good segue to talk about the collective, the DART collective, and maybe just give a quick, super high level overview with the research you're doing and like what is this all about?
So we started out actually not just looking at seniors. We started out, this is a National Science Foundation project. And the whole thrust of this project was the NSF, which funds a lot of basic research, a lot of basic security research. These projects, they want to be, what they're calling converged research, meaning like it's not just us security people because we have one way of looking at things, but you have to have a variety of disciplines together to make things better. Like we know intuitively that's good, but really, when you get other disciplines like gerontology, which is studying old people, and digital literacy. So originally started out people who are experts in communication and education and thinking about what we could do to help digital literacy. But if you look around, there's an awful lot of tools to improve kind of generic digital literacy. There's also a lot of tools that are aimed at. We originally thought about potentially something for kind of middle school, high schoolers who, really before they get into their careers and as their notions are being shaped, how do you help them, kind of defend themselves against scammers? But as we looked around, we saw that there were a lot of just a lot of things in this area. A lot of states, including where I am in Illinois, they require a semester of digital literacy training, and more states are having people do this. So ultimately, after about a year of kind of noodling over our target audience, we said, senior citizens are really an underserved market. So this is where at the end of the year we brought in someone who specializes in gerontology, which is a study of older people. We brought in somebody who understands UX and design as it applies to older people. We also brought in game designers who really understood that, amazingly, people may not know this, that the population of kind of 50 and over is the fastest growing population of gamers. Again, time in their hands. But there's a particular way you want to kind of get to people in that age group. So that's how we all came together and decided, this is a worthy market because the dollar losses and underserved market resources are out there if you want to go find them. So the Federal Trade Commission, AARP, they do have resources out there, but the seniors have to go to find them. One is something we could bring to them. Everybody we talk to says, I have a friend, a neighbor, a relative. Oh, I think they've been scammed. And that's what drove us to really start iterating on this.
Yeah. It's I want to divert a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about my background because I think it's kind of complementary. So, the first startup that I ever was involved in. I founded was a company called Compago in Australia, and it was building home care communication and management systems for seniors, and basically in Australia, there's huge push for people to age in place. Uh, but it's extremely complicated for seniors to get access to that. So we were building kind of iPads, well, not iPads, but tablets to help them kind of connect into those services. And the company still exists. But one of the big concerns that we had as we grew and we started rolling this out was that we noticed that people were actually kind of scamming the seniors through our systems. And I feel like there's a bit of a stigma with people getting scammed because it feels sometimes like it's their own fault, like they were being silly. And it's really interesting when you look at these scams. I think a lot of people would absolutely fall for this. It's kind of interesting that the stigmas around that you're facing with. Did you have any kind of pushback with the whole seniors and technology moment? Because I think that was something that we faced a lot of, as people saying that seniors didn't want to use technology, whereas we thought that was completely untrue. But was that something that you did kind of felt in
Yes,
your project?
as we started out, people were pushing back a lot, kind of external people saying, well, seniors, they're just using their cricket phones and they're just, they're not really on
Mm-hmm.
technology, which is completely not true. There's certainly a
Mm-hmm.
portion of seniors, but there's been a lot of surveys. AARP does a lot of great surveys, and a huge percent, well over 50% of people over 70 years old have a smartphone. So it is no longer like they're on a cricket phone and they're just getting
Mm-hmm.
scammed with IRS style scams calling them. So we knew that people were on phones. We knew that older folks are on Facebook. We did get pushback of, originally kind of wrestling with, are you trying to nudge them to make better decisions? Are you just trying to make people more mindful? Are you trying to make them aware that, as you said, we've run into a lot of people as we've done our kind of testing who have said, my really smart neighbor or my really tech savvy neighbor, they got scammed. So one of the things we're trying to do is really, particularly seniors, is to say, regardless of your education, your ethnicity, your kind of, where your demographics, everybody can get scammed. The other, I'd say, not pushback, but the encouraging thing that places like the Federal Trade Commission are urging us to do is, in security a lot, we talk about scammers and social engineering. They said they want to change the tune to call them criminals. That's what they are. I mean, when you say scammers, it's
Mm.
almost like,
Yeah.
not PC, but it's almost like it gives a certain like image of these people like scam you. One, they're criminals. The other thing that you brought up that's right on target with what we were hearing was seniors don't want to be seen as victims. So we really are trying to avoid saying, "Oh, you're old. We don't want you to be
Yeah.
seen." They themselves, time and again, said to us, "We want to be empowered to do things like help our neighbor, someone who might be an ex-teacher or ex-military. They want to be the person that knows how to help the neighbor." Which was surprising, like in some sense, but kind of not in others.
So I want to dive into the thing you actually created, which I've gotten to play with actually since I saw your talk, and that is DeepCover, which is the game itself. Um, and part of the way you introduced it when you're explaining the backstory of it, and it's kind of where I'd like to start from, is you made this interesting comment. You can't just make chocolate covered broccoli. You can't just make a training tool and just jam it down their throats and a little bit of a game on top. So I'll just let you talk from there.
Yeah, so that's something that, again, it's like not for me personally, but a lot of game designers will tell you this. So one of our collaborators, he runs what is now the game studies department at University of Illinois, and there's more of these kind of formal game studies departments popping up where people, there are just tried and true methods when you're building a game. I'm not a big gamer, but if you are, there's tried and true methods. But one of the things, in security, for years, right, there's been security gamification. And generally it's like, it's not that great. But the chocolate covered broccoli is, if you have kids or if you played with these kind of edutainment games where it tries to both teach you math and be fun, it doesn't teach you a lot and it's not all that fun. It kind of tells you if you do
Half
this
the
crappy
masters will
math
say.
problem that's boring, you'll get rewarded. And That's like, it's not fun for the kid. They're not learning a lot. And that's what we heard over from the video game designer. And we did pull in a company to do this. They said, look, either the game is, and we wrestle with this philosophically, especially, if you're an academic, you want to teach people, you want them to bring stuff away. How can you measure you teaching them stuff? It's hard with a game like this. So we kind of settled that DeepCover, which is the mobile game you can download, is just going to be fun. Hopefully what you'll take away is you'll know how to spell phishing. You'll know, kind of just very basics, it kind of just in a very light way introduces you to these concepts without jamming it down your throat that you are learning something. If you do want to go in depth, there's this larger kind of learning management platform called DART Academy where you can simulate and it goes in a lot more depth. So that's how we're trying to avoid the chocolate covered broccoli by saying the game's fun. If you learn something, even better.
I had a good time playing it for a bit. It's so for those of you listening, it's free. It doesn't ask for micropayments. This is a great thing. That's one of my. I sent it to my sister immediately. She's a little older than me, and that was her first question back. It's like, what does this cost? I'm like, it's free. She's like, well, what's the in-game ads? And I'm like, it's not. It's just a game. But it's multiple levels of mini games with a bigger story going on behind it. And I don't play a lot of mobile games myself, but that seems to be the trend now. Of like, let's tell this bigger, grand story, and I like the way that you all incorporated that.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun. If you download it, it's a kind of a fun. We wanted to make an old timey kind of spy theme. So you do these games, and it's kind of this perpetual, eternal play loop. But eventually, you can play these games, collect some intel, and go on these little missions. So we try to make it really sticky. Again, it'll always be free. It's not there to make money, but yeah, just something that's kind of fun and a little bit of a challenge when you're, on the plane or on the subway or whatever.
I'm really interested in the research that you did while building DART, and I'm curious. Was there any? Maybe you could explain kind of what some of that research was, and was there any surprising results that kind of came from that? Things that surprised you the most that
Yeah, so part of the research was just on how to learn. So there are people who, they do research on how you learn, how you take things away. And I think what they started out really feeling was you have to be nudged in a certain way with very specific things in order to take away and learn something. This ends up not being the case, and really what the way that we're finding people learn is just a lot of repetition. If you hear phishing, 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 that seems to be more effective than just a structured way you hear it once and then, take it away and think about it forever. So the repetition was one. The other was we were surprised that seniors were, and we did a lot of, I should say my collaborators did everything like set up a table at the flea market in South Carolina and talk to people and, kind of all over to get a wide swath of people. But many seniors, were more savvy than we thought. Like they understood that this was a scam. What we learned though is where there was this gap is they didn't really kind of understand some of the more technical features. So they understood that an IRS scam or these other kind of scams, they don't come from the US. They come from someplace. They get that intuitively, but the gap was, they really didn't understand, am I targeted? How do they get my number? So we found there was more awareness than we thought. Some of the technicalities they weren't as savvy with. Yeah, I'd say those were the main things. Also, seniors were more cautious than we thought. They, whereas we thought like, they're going to fall for a Facebook or a phishing scam. They actually, much more so, I think, than some of the younger generation we talked to will say, I think this might be a scam, even to the point of going overboard, by the way. And you have to say, well, it's not, you can trust this. Okay, well, why should I trust it? So that was a little surprising. The level of knowledge, and these are, again, a wide swath of people, was probably more than I think some of us anticipated.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I love and I love some of the points that you've been getting to because it's I'm based on my own experience. I'm really sick of the stigma that's kind of attached to this, and the points that I just kind of like reiterate that you're saying is moving away from scammers and turning them criminals, and then people understanding that that seniors can actually use technology. They're not all falling for everything. And I think once we move away from that stigma, we can actually get more serious about the problem that is actually as happening here and the criminals that are at work. So I really just enjoyed a couple of those points that you're
I
taking on.
in general, I like that in security now. In general, I think we saw this at B-Sides 312. My sense in the past 5, 6 years is that in general, we're getting away from blaming the victim, like, oh, you clicked on that stupid phishing link. Like, I think in general that's happening, and now we're more empathetic towards populations that they're going to get scammed. So how do you empathize? I think maybe the final thing that I learned that I think is still a huge challenge is, where do you report this? It's very confusing. Is it local police? Is it FBI? Is it all the above? So that's another thing we're trying to communicate is like a lot of the seniors just said, "Oh, I didn't lose that much money. Just it's not worth the hassle to me. I don't want to be shamed and embarrassed again by retelling my story." And we're trying to tell them, okay, maybe you're not going to get your couple $100 back, but you could help somebody else. So
Yeah.
that's another kind of hurdle with in general, but a hurdle with seniors.
Yeah. It even happened with my parents. My parents, I think the total bill was about $1,000 that they got scammed out of. And at first you're kind of like, oh no, like their son works in cybersecurity and they've been fooled for a scam. So they were all like, embarrassed. And then when they did tell me about it, we actually ran through exactly what happened. And a lot of it is just timing. I think too, where it was a PayPal scam. It was, like, hey, did you send this money through PayPal? And they do send money and gifts and things through PayPal, so it kind of made sense for that. The timing was kind of a little bit off. They were both busy and kind of in a panic. And then the scammers went through a whole bunch of security things where, like they were like, can you verify your middle name? Okay, we're going to send you a message now, and so all of these things kind of like made them feel. So when you come down to it, it's not they're not falling for the prince has left you $1 million and you just
Right.
need to pay the tax. These are sophisticated actors. These are businesses. These are organizations that making absolute millions. I think in the billions of dollars from this.
100%.
It's very
Especially
interesting.
the romance scammers, the pig butchering. This is a long
Hmm.
game. These folks are playing with armies of people. And if 2% of their scams work out, it still nets them money. And you're right, it makes them feel good, and it walks you through how to send crypto, go to a Bitcoin ATM. At that point, they know their money is not recoverable, but having them tell their story, and that's one thing we're hoping to do with Dark Collective, is help us help others by just telling your story. And some of them just want somebody to talk to. AARP is a fraud hotline where you can talk to an actual person. But a lot of people have been scammed. They just want to vent and just like, I just want to tell you my story without judgment.
I like the way that you phrased this as we started here, and I've been kind of reflecting on that since we started this conversation. Is really framing it not as you know they're old people, they don't get with technology. No, they have funds available. Like it's the largest amount of generational wealth trapped in like one
Yeah.
demographic
Right,
in
right,
history. Like these people own giant houses. They paid not as much money as you would pay today. Let's leave it
right.
at that. Um, but uh, that as the target does move that conversation away from they're just silly to oh, no, this is a real crime that we need to do something about at a larger scale.
Yeah. That's such an interesting point you make. It's not they're not being targeted because they're silly. They're being targeted because they have available funds more
Well,
probably
that's
than
exactly it.
other groups of.
And
And
That's such an important point.
they tend to
and
keep
at
more in savings. They tend to be able to go to the ATM to take out large amounts of cash, which other ages can't just go and take out a grand out of an ATM on any given
Yeah.
day.
can target 22-year-olds all day, but I don't know a lot of
You're not going to get
22-year-olds.
the money out of them.
No,
Well,
you're gonna have to ask
but
their
yeah.
parents to get the money. And
Uh,
the other thing is the rate at which these scams, these crimes are evolving is just flat out alarming. I've gone to a number of presentations in the last couple months on the state of phishing, and just how fast that's evolving due to AI, deep fake voices, to just we can gather all your behavioral information with literally one prompt in one tool, and now we can write you a
Mm.
very convincing email that we couldn't have even 6 months ago. Just how are we preparing your audience here for that?
Yeah, certainly the most kind of pernicious one for the seniors is, and luckily this has had a lot of press, is the grandparent scams where they use, and now all you need is 3 seconds of audio to really, you go to social media, get somebody's grandchild's voice, and it really does sound like them. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest things we're trying to educate them on is how it works. So what we've done as we're developing DART Academy is have short little, in security we know it as TTPs. For the seniors, what we're doing is short, like 60-second little kind of pop-ups that is, okay, deepfakes, what is it? And it's going to show you in a 60 seconds or less, how do you make a deep fake with just 3 seconds of audio? So we're trying to tailor some of this to a senior audience, even something that, the caller ID pops up as Chicago. It's not. Well, how does that work? Kind of the
Mm.
TTPs boiled down to a 30, 60-second, just so you can kind of see and understand that this isn't some super technical, outfit doing this. This is pretty darn easy. So, showing them, how do I take your grandchild's 3 seconds of audio and make it sound like them? So we're hoping to just show people that, look, it's not that hard. And you're not targeted because it's you personally, but in some cases you might be. And kind of, how do you know when that happens? And very quickly, what do you do? Hang up, call the loved one back. So those are the things we're trying to bake in, just more like mindfulness and awareness.
Yeah, it is terrifying, with it. When my wife, I met her when she was backpacking around Australia, and when that happened, her mum got a text, to say, "Hey, mum, my phone got stolen. I'm in real trouble. Can you wire money to this?" All of that was, seemed legitimate. All of it, checked out. Add in there a voice message. I mean, it's very convincing. It's. Do you feel that since the start of the AI revolutions that things are getting progressively worse? I know they're getting more sophisticated. I know with the voice things, but has this translated into more successful scams from your understanding?
I think it has translated into, as you said, the content's better. It's more targeted. The deepfake video, audio, the content. So the old timey romance scammers with broken English. I mean, that's just gotten better with the help of AI.
Yeah,
All the scripting, that's just easier for them. I don't know if it's translated into more sophisticated scams that we see, but it's
right.
assisting making I mean, certainly, the pictures that you get of your bank and an attempt. Certainly, AI is super easy to help enhance that.
Yeah. It's a scary world for the scammers. And I think I was at a presentation, and I read that it was 2019 where officially the cybercrime uh, kind of economy, let's call it, surpassed the drug economy. So these things are just getting, and since then it's kind of keeps going. And if it was an economy of itself, I think it would be like the fourth largest kind of economy as a state,
Sure.
just the total amounts of cybercrime. So it's just such a massive, a massive issue. What's the best way? Yeah, this game sounds so important. It sounds really interesting. What's the best way to kind of spread awareness for this game, or to share it, or to get people involved? What's kind of the best
Yeah.
the best steps for
So,
this?
so our official launch is going to be in November, which means that the game DeepCover. What we're trying to do now is just organically have people download DeepCover. It's at least one of you has played it. It's kind of in beta, but that's going to be improved. So we want to have people download and play and give us feedback for DeepCover, which is available on Android or Apple. So spreading the word and understanding how to iterate to make this better. Our next goal is to have it in Spanish and potentially other languages, incorporate different scams. We can only talk to so many people. So that's the first thing, is just give us feedback on DeepCover, pass it along to a loved one, a friend, a
Hmm.
relative. For DART Academy, which is our learning platform, this will be out, excuse me, in November. And a couple of things there is, our intention is to make as much free as we can. So it'll be like a freemium model where a lot of the modules are going to be free. There will be some paid content. But the biggest thing there is we're trying to understand, again, feedback is helpful. We have brought this to community centers and libraries. And if there is somebody who we'd like to build an affiliate network where, you're at your local library or community center, you are willing to walk through this with people. That's one thing. The other thing is we're trying to understand how our goal is really to make this learning platform as immersive as possible. So you could probably take the same content and put it in a PowerPoint, but realistically, going through this as a structured learning is helpful. Even more helpful would be making it more immersive. So the really good phishing, you see that, and it helps kind of test you. We are not sure how that's going to resonate, and that's something we're trying to get feedback on as well as we get to this launch date.
You're on mute, Dwayne.
Yeah, I realized I locked
Classic.
my window. So where should people go to get their hands on this stuff? What's the URL that they
So
should be going to?
dartcollective.net is your one-stop shop. This has links to the game DeepCover. It will have a link to DART Academy, which is a learning platform. There's also a list of resources, a very robust. We've taken, there's a lot of co-opetition amongst federal agencies about who has the best senior information. We've assembled it all on a resources page. We even have a page for Tell Us Your Story. If you want to be an early tester, so everything is a one-stop shop of dartcollective.net. And we'll be at DEF CON doing some demos. We'll be at a bunch of security conferences to really try to get more security people. Everyone I've talked to seems to have a story about a friend or relative. So the more feedback we can get, once this DART collective, officially we just formed, but once we start taking off, we're really trying to hone in on the scope and our mission. Ideally, we'd love to build this network of people to get this out to seniors and kind of train the trainer. But right now, dartcollective.net.
I will say if there's one silver lining to all of this that for me personally is, like I said, I sent this immediately to my sister, and I just sent her the URL, no explanation, and I was typing the explanation, and before I could send that message off, she wrote me back as like, "Hey, bro, are you trying to scam me? What is this link?" So
Right,
like,
right.
she's already has that instinct built in. So this is just going to help her and my mom and the rest of the family get this out. So we're coming to the end of the show here. Thank you very much for being here. But we always like to play a little game with all of our guests, and that is best advice, worst advice. So, what is the best advice for cybersecurity or security in general you've ever been given? And then we'll ask you what the worst advice is. So, we'll start with good.
Best advice that I've been given and I give people is really think about for a free product, who gets your data and where it goes. That whole lifespan of your data is something that increasingly I think about and I tell people to think about. Don't just give away any information about yourself without thinking about where it's going to go.
And worst advice?
I think the worst advice is the old timey things like don't connect to sketchy Wi-Fi. That's always my favorite. Like, what the hell is sketchy Wi-Fi? So I think those pithy, like poster worthy things are just, worthless.
If
Yeah.
you're at DEF CON, I think that's the one exception. Everything's there.
Yeah. Don't connect to dodgy Wi-Fi
Fair
at
enough.
Discord.
Yeah.
There's a wall of sheep. So that specifically. But yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. If I'm going in to do like check my email, it's kind of hard to do the Wi-Fi bridge now in a way that's not obvious that, hey, I shouldn't be on this thing.
Well, I think it also comes down to the fact that, like, be scared of the internet, right? Like, that's kind of we live on the internet now, right? We live in Wi-Fi, and therefore, it's there's
I'll give you
this
one last
be
one that sorry not to interrupt. One last one that I
nope.
think for seniors makes a big difference is the same advice to us, like don't write your password down ever. That look, someone who's a senior or in their 80s, they need to write their password down and put it somewhere safe. I mean, I think our security guidance should be different depending on the population. And if you're talking to somebody in their 80s, write the password down and put it somewhere safe, especially if there's no one in their home that's going to compromise it.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally understand the logic behind that in specific, and we had some kind of guests on the show here that's kind of like, with security, you should never kind of flat out say, no, oh my god, you can't do that. It's, they always go, yes, but, like, can I write my password down? Yes, but we've got to put it somewhere safe. You got to know where it is, and you got to understand that that's important. That's important. So these things are the yes but policies of security is, that we need to adopt.
That's right.
Well, Anita, it's been a fascinating episode. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I've loved your insights. There's a whole bunch of tidbits that I know we're going to pull out and make into little clips. So I just want to thank you again for sharing your thoughts here. And finally, just before we go, if the people listening, we're going to put links in the show notes to both DART and also DeepCover, the games. But if people want to maybe follow you, I know you presented. Are you on any social media that they potentially could find out if you're delivering any presentations at conferences coming up?
The only social media I'm on is LinkedIn. That's the only thing. Me personally, Anita Nikolich on LinkedIn, and DART Collective has all of our upcoming events where we're going to be presenting on the dartcollective.net webpage.
Awesome. I can't wait to find out more. So thanks again for coming, and I'm wishing you all the best on your launches that are very exciting coming up for the rest of the year.
Awesome. Thank you.